learners. Welcome to MOOC's course titled Migrated Women's Literature. Our today's lecture is Migration, Why and How. In this lecture, we would be talking about different reasons of migration. We have discussed about the migration and other related terms in our previous lectures. Today's lecture, Migration, Why and How, would focus upon major reasons of migration and the formation of some major diasporas. We know that humans have been traveling and settling in places since the beginning, since their origin. This migration has been governed by some external forces, and we can address those forces as reasons behind migration. The point to be mentioned here is that traveling and settling in at some new place has never been easy for anyone. Neither it was in the past nor it is in the present. Earlier, the process of uprooting oneself and rerouting was extremely painful because the feeling of displacement and disconnection from their land and people was very strong. And there were reasons also. At that time, resources for communication were limited, whereas in the present time, we have various resources that are faster to communicate and easier to access. Therefore, the intensity of the feeling of displacement and disconnection has also changed. However, the movement of people from one nation to another continues, but for different reasons. There could be various reasons for their group or community movement. These reasons could be classified broadly into two categories. These categories are called factors of migration. We have two categories that are titled as push factors and pull factors. First, those who moved due to what have been called as push factors. Defined most broadly, the push factors are the reasons that force a people belonging to a specific community, a particular group, or a nation, or even whole regions to leave the place they are living in and go away and settle in another region. It could be nearby or far off, sometimes very far off. Second, those who moved due to what have been called as pull factor. Again defined broadly, the pull factors are the reasons that pull or attract a group of people or a community or even larger formations, could be national or regional, to give up or be used to give up living at a particular place and go settle in a new place. As said earlier, this place could be nearby, far off, or very far off. Let us dilate a little more these pull and push factors. Push factors first. The push factors refer to adverse economic conditions at home, inferior facilities for health and education, degraded quality of life, political instability, including conflict and war or political persecution. The Jews under Moses were among the first such people who were pushed out of their land for political reasons, as recorded in the history of diaspora. One of the earliest examples of push factors is from Africa in prehistoric times, where Sahara, which once was a very big lake, began to dry up suddenly for some inexplicable reasons. People living around it were pushed to migrate and settle elsewhere. Going south, they traveled all the way to South Africa. Traveling up, they came right to Egypt. Some 12,000 years ago, in the eastern Sahara Desert, the Nile Valley was the only location to dwell. Because the Nile Valley was so densely populated, a fine, livable place was hard to find. But around 10,500 years ago, a significant upsurge in monsoon rains across the wide desert turned the area into a livable area. Based on 500 new radiocarbon dates of human and animal bones from over 150 excavation sites, the researchers concluded that this paved the way for human habitation. Afterwards, the Egyptian Sahara began to dry up due to retreating monsoonal rains, which forced people to relocate to the Sudanese Sahara's surviving livable zones. Around 5,500 years ago, the rainy season ended and the Sahara returned to desert conditions, making the beginning of pharaonic society and the migration of people back to the Nile Valley. That migration of people to Egypt was caused due to the push factor. They were forced and pushed by the natural circumstances to leave their homeland and migrate. There must have been similar major movements that are not recorded and hence not called diasporic movements. Central Europeans coming and settling in Iran and India is another such example. Entered Indian subcontinent at the end of the 5th or the 6th century. Now let us talk about the pull factors. The pull factor refers to a situation where a group is attracted to a place in another country where there are better prospects for a living, better prospects for career, better education, or better health facilities. In a way, a place where some better quality of life is available. People migrate to that place. So, these good conditions of life work as pull factors. For instance, most people who move abroad these days, like the USA, European countries, Australia, the Middle East, they do so for one or the other reasons just talked about. So, these are the reasons that fall under the category which is called pull factors. Pull factors brought groups and communities, though voluntarily, from Europe to North and South Americas to establish English, French, German, Spanish, Greek, Italian diasporas in the USA and Canada. One of these is the Irish diaspora in the North America, one of the largest, which was established due to the pushback. In an effort to control the crucial sea route to the east, both France and Great Britain attempted to seize the Cape during their war with one another in 1793. After the British took over the Cape in 1795, the Dutch company's presence in the area came to an end. Despite giving up the colony to the Dutch in the Treaty of Amiens, which took place in 1802, the British reclaimed that place in 1806, following the outbreak of the Napoleonic Wars. The Cape's economy was interwoven with Britain's before the Suez Canal opened in 1869, and the Cape became a crucial base for Britain. This was the pull factor working behind the establishment of another diaspora. Europeans being pulled by better economic prospects to their national colonies in Asia, Africa, Australia, etc., also led to the establishment of diasporas. The colonizers always had comfortable and luxurious lives in their colonies. They used to live in huge bungalows with an army of servants available at their beck and call. Such luxury was not affordable in their own countries. In the colonies, they could maltreat people yet force them to serve. And the biggest reason was that slaves never had a right to retaliate. So, such comforts of life and the aura of being a ruler attracted them towards those colonies. This is also an example of pull factor which was instrumental behind the establishment of one such diaspora. The colonizers also pulled people from their colonies. They pulled people from one country to another for developing them. An excellent example of this is the establishment of Indian diaspora in Mauritius, South Africa, Kenya, Fiji, Guyana, and other West Indian island nations, and even Canada. The formation of Indian diaspora would be discussed in some other lectures to come. We have some major examples of migration which were caused either by push factor or by pull factor. The very first example is Jewish diaspora, because it is believed that Jewish diaspora is the very first diaspora. Jewish diaspora was the movement of Jews from their homeland and settling up at various places. The first Jewish diaspora was known as Assyrian exile, which happened in 733 BC and subsisted for some centuries. Later on, the Jews divided into some groups based on the geographical locations, and each group shared some basic historical issues of persecution and expulsions. Next example is of African diaspora. In recent history, most diasporic movements began with the establishment of colonies from the 16th century onwards. The biggest such movement was from the continent of Africa, when tens of millions from all parts were pulled forcibly by mercenaries to be bought and sold and taken to North and South Americas for developing these lands. The Africans were forcibly pushed out and settled in the USA during the notorious slavery era in the 16th century. In due course of time, these migrated people came to be known as Negroes and now referred to as African Americans. African diaspora began in the 8th century when the Arabs took the African slaves from the central and eastern areas of the continent to the Middle East. These people were known as Zani. These captured Africans were sold in the markets of Middle East and the Indian subcontinent. Later on, by the 15th century, the Europeans also started capturing and buying these African slaves in the markets of Europe and America. This slave trade ended by the middle of the 20th century. Another important diaspora was the Irish diaspora. The Irish people were forced to leave their homeland and settle elsewhere during the infamous potato famine in Ireland. During that time, approximately 2 million people escaped from Ireland to America and Canada. But most of them could not survive. The ships used then were in extreme bad conditions and were dubbed as coffin ships. Most of the Irish people moved towards America with no money and no food to eat. Around 30,000 Irish landed in Canada and strengthened its workforce by working on low wages. These were Irish people who supported Canadian economy by working in the projects of buildings, bridges, and other construction areas. Here, the remarkable point is that most of the time the push factor and the pull factor work together in a combination of two. Because the reason that pushed a people from their motherland is always associated with another reason that pulls them. In the present era, we can understand these push and pull factors by dividing them into different sections. We can divide them into three major categories like economic factors, social and cultural factors, and political factors. Let us talk about economic factors first. Economic considerations are the primary reasons for voluntary migration. The primary drivers of migration to regions with more economic prospects in the majority of developing nations are poor agricultural income, underemployment, and agricultural unemployment. As some of the researches and some of the studies have acknowledged that one of the primary causes of poverty and rural exodus is population pressure. that results in a high man to land ratio. Therefore, the majority of the migrants, according to practically all researches, have relocated in quest of better employment prospects. Both domestic and foreign migration fall under this category. Economic reasons come under push as well as pull factors, both. To put it in another way, we can say that a combination of push factor and pull factor work to motivate people to leave their land and migrate to a new place. And these are the factors that come as economic factors behind migration. In addition to the economic factors, we also have some other factors. These are social and cultural variables. These factors also contribute to the migration. For example, family disputes might sometimes be the reason for moving. It is one of the social factors, we can say, or it can be taken as an example of a social factor. Along with that, availability of better technical facilities like availability of television, radio, internet, and other communication facilities, better transportation facility. All these facilities which are available at one place, but these facilities are not so good at a different place. So the people living in that place where such technical facilities are not available, they would move towards a better place. So these are also responsible for migration from one place to another. For example, we can say that the availability of better communication facility, which is a part of social factor. So this availability is a reason behind the migration from rural to urban areas. Next, we can say that there are other social and cultural reasons also. Like social considerations either encourage or discourage migration. If a society is hostile towards any specific community, then this hostility would work as a push factor. Similarly, when a people feel safe and they feel secure in one specific social system, so certainly this security would work as a pull factor, and people would start migrating towards that social system. In the same way, better opportunities, better educational facilities, and better living areas, all these work as pull factors. So, another example can be of societal and cultural pressures. These two things work together to accelerate the migration. For example, if someone from one specific area migrates and achieves success in life, so the other people living in that specific area would take this person as an example, and the success of this person would work as a pull factor, and the people of his homeland, his home area, would also start migration in search of success. So this is how cultural factors work. Now we have other reasons behind migration. These are called as political factors. Political factors have been working since ages as the push factors. When a community finds it hard to survive due to any political reason, they decide to migration. Let us have some examples. Migration of Rohingyas to Bangladesh was due to political reasons. Civil war can also be a reason behind the migration of people, which is certainly a political reason. So all these factors, economic factor, social and cultural factor, and political factor, are parts of push and pull factors. To sum up, we can say that the push factors are those that, for a variety of reasons, compel or force individuals to leave that location and relocate elsewhere. For instance, unfavorable economic conditions and low productivity, joblessness, Depletion of natural resources and natural disasters may force people to flee from their own country in quest of more favorable employment prospects. According to a survey conducted by International Labour Organization, the primary driver behind workers leaving agricultural area is reduced income. We know that agricultural income typically falls short. These people who are dependent upon agriculture, they work hard but they do not get enough. The Planning Commission believed that more than one third of the people living in rural areas were impoverished. The population of the country is growing fast. It has resulted in the decreased amount of arable land available per person. Additionally, the underemployment and unemployment in rural areas have also increased. So, these are also some of the reasons behind migration. And we also can say that there are different reasons behind the migration of the younger people. The young males go to the cities in pursuit of employment. Sometimes, even if the employment is available in their area, yet they migrate to different places because they have bigger dreams, and to fulfill those dreams, they need bigger places. So, these are some of the reasons behind migration. And while talking about the social causes, sometimes, let's say, for example, joint family system, and also sometimes the inheritance laws that forbid property partition, for example, the inheritance laws which sometimes are not in the favor of one of the parties there. These also accelerate migration. So, due to the holdings becoming insufficient to sustain a family, migration is even caused by subdividing them. However, these are the reasons which are more responsible for the intranational migration. And intranational migration is not considered diasporic, and it is also not a part of our detailed discussion. So let us summarize it like pull factors are those that draw migrants to a place, such as better job possibilities, higher pay, better working conditions, better quality of life amenities, etc. In general, cityward migration occurs during the periods of rapid industrial, commercial, and business boom. The possibility of achieving higher wages, the possibility of getting a better life, these have contributed to the high rate of migration from India to other developed countries, like migration to the USA, Canada, and now to the Middle East in recent years. Occasionally, the bright lights of the metropolis or superior cultural and leisure options draw migrants to these places. However, pull factors are present in different forms of internal as well as international migration, in addition to migration from rural to urban areas. There are situations where people wonder which influences more, pull factor or push factor. Some contend that push factors overweigh the pull factor because they believe that issues as opposed to the attractions are what really influence people to migrate. However, those who place more weight on the pull factors highlight high rates of investments in the cities, which increase business and employment prospects as well as the allure of the city lifestyle. While the categorization of migration motivations into push and pull variables is helpful in evaluating migration determinants, these components cannot fully account for all migration movements. Furthermore, migration can occasionally happen as a result of both push and pull factors working together. That's all for today. We will discuss about other topics related to migration in the next class. Thank you.